This is a crash course on Rapid Geology, which very quickly will get you up and running. What we see here in the middle is a bounding box, and inside this bounding box is where you create your geological model. There are 4 modes. This is the rotation and zoom mode, rotation with left and zoom with right. This is the mode for changing the bounding box size. This is selection mode, and this is for drawing. For more information, press on the tool and read at the bottom. The way we model is by drawing surfaces which will cut the empty space into solids. To make a surface, you select this drawing tool and you draw a curve. When you release, you see the curve, and you also see that the surface is made, which is basically just a curve being extruded inwards. When I press cut, everything which is empty space below the surface will be filled. So if I make a new surface or a new curve which becomes extruded into surface and I press cut, then this part here will be filled, because as you see it's empty. And again, if I make just like this, you see the surface actually continues down, and you can turn off the model to see the whole surface. And then when you press cut, it creates this one here. Each layer is shown on the left side, and you can select it here, and you see how it looks like. It's red when you select it. You can also select a layer and cut that. So we can select this bottom layer, and when I draw a surface like that, which if I hide the model, you see it here, and then when I press cut, it has cut it into 2 parts. Also notice that the bottom part is automatically selected, so let's just deselect that. You can also delete a layer. You can delete this layer, it will just go away. But if you delete a layer which is below other layers, let's say we delete this bottom one here, and I press delete, then the material on the layers above will just fall down. So this shape changes a little bit. You can also undo what you did. Undo, I'll do one more undo, like this. And then I will show that you can make layers that bend back on themselves. So let's select this one and press cut, and you see you get this result here. You can also turn on and off the visibility of the layers, like this. If you want to make a fault, you first make a layer and then you press fault. And what you see is that the model is split into 2 parts. The layers below the fault, they have the same color, and the layers above the fault have become a little bit darker. You can even slide the fault by going in here, and here you choose how much it should slide to the right. So you see now it's sliding to the right, and it's showing a preview mode on the side here. When you press finalize, then you can see the result. Let's deselect this one, and then you see that this block here has slid down a little bit. The layers can be given different colors. If you press here, you get this geological color chooser, but you can also press here to get standard color chooser. Or you can give it lithological textures by clicking on this one and then choosing some sort of texture like this. And then you can cut into the model by moving the bounding box. So what I showed now was basically making a 2D illustration because everything was extruded inwards. But you can make three-dimensional surfaces too by not only drawing on this side but also on the other bounding box sides, like here you see this, and also inside. So if I take this one, move it in, then I can draw a bump like that and move it out again, and you see you get this surface here. And then when I press cut, everything here below will be filled, but I have to make sure that nothing is selected. So nothing selected, and then I press cut, and then you have this result. There are other tools for making a model too. One other tool is to draw a curve and extrude a silhouette along that curve, which can be useful for making channels or rivers or tunnels. So we want to draw a curve, but let's draw it on the terrain. So to draw it on the terrain, we have to press this one, and then we choose the tool, this other modeling tool, and we start drawing on the terrain like this. So you see this curve here is on the terrain, and then when I press end it will move to a different view, because now we are going to draw the silhouette which we want to have extruded along this spline. So to start on the silhouette or the outline, we press new outline, and then I will just draw a circle-like shape, and then we press end, and then you see the resulting shape. It's very thick. It can actually be edited. And you see the result in real time. And then when you're satisfied, you can either choose if you want this bottom layer here to be cut according to the shape, or if you want to fill the empty air at the top. So let's choose the latter. So if I press cut and I take away the surface, then we get this result here. So that was a very quick introduction to some of the tools for modeling. Here's a quick overview of the other functionalities in Rapid Geology. To the right you have several menus which can be opened and closed. The first menu is settings which are useful to access at any time during modeling. The rest of the menus resemble a pipeline where you start with importing data, or alternatively, if you don't want to import data, you just want to draw something from your imagination, then you can instead set the boundaries where you specify the length, the depth and the height of the world. If you import data, these boundaries are set automatically. Then you can add some reference geometry which you are using to help drawing the 3D model. This can be well logs or grids, for instance. Then in geological modeling, you have the different modeling tools. After you have created a model, you can cut into it and look at the interior in different ways using tools from the clipping menu. And then when you're finished modeling, you can add text to different positions, 3D geometries, labels, curves, and these are the annotations. In presentation, you can choose the color saturation of the model, the thickness, texture repeat, background color, information overlay, such as text you can have different places, and also something that maybe doesn't fit perfectly here, but you can set water and oxidation levels, and you can actually make some very simple animations. And then at the end you might want to export the data to different formats. So let's go through some of the functionalities. We start with importing data, and here you have different alternatives. We will choose to import from a world map. So this is a map you can zoom in anywhere in the world. And you have 4 different types of map views. And then you select an area, wait for it to finish downloading, and then you load that data. By default, the set exaggeration is in the same ratio as X and Y, but we can turn off that so we can choose our own exaggeration. And we can also move the map a little bit upwards to the middle like this. And then you can press cut, and it creates a solid below. And then let's turn off the map texture, and then we have the topography like this. We can turn on isolines. Let's make them a little bit less thick and have them every 200 meters. Then we can turn on the axis here, so in meters, and this is UTM, also in meters, but it starts with the UTM coordinate at the start corner. And then I can show some other geological modeling tools. We have seen the anchor curves, the NURBS curves. The brushes you enable by clicking this, and then you can see a circle here. And then when I move on the top bounding box, you can see that you are changing the position of that circle. And what you can do is basically move the terrain up or down in this circle area. So if we make this mountaintop even higher like that, or we can make a ridge going like that, and you can also make the height negative so it goes down instead, like this. So it's a simple brush tool. Then you have some tools under natural processes. Here we have this one called deposit new layer. You can choose the thickness of the layer and you press deposit, and it just creates a new layer on top with a constant thickness. And if you continue to do like that, then you just get layer on layer, and each layer is a little bit smoothed compared to the previous one. So if you look in here, you can see all the layers. Let's add a few more. Then we have the Erode tool, which is here. What that does is that after you draw a surface, and when you press Erode, everything above the surface is taken away. Like that. Now let's look at the different clipping tools. You have one which is you can enable clip planes. There are 3 clip planes you can enable, and you can set the position of each of them. And so the first one is here, the second one is here, and the third one is there. And you can enable and disable them here, but also in the shortcut on the menu here. So now that was enabled, the second one and the third one. And you can of course enable several at once, and you can invert the selection with this last one. So now it's the opposite. It shows the top terrain as a grid, which you can turn on and off also. Then you have the fence diagram. So when you enable, you get fences X parallel, Y parallel, set parallel, and you can also have, now it has 3, but you can have more of them, and you can change the rotation and the tilt on all 3 of them. Now I will show using annotations, but let me first turn off the isolines. So there are many different annotations. The first one is very simple. You just select a point. I want that point to be in the terrain, so let me turn this on, so then we are drawing on the terrain. So point, and let's select the point at this position here. You have a small point there now. I will open a menu for annotations, and you can write the text, and it shows the text like that, always facing the viewer. We can make the text bigger, smaller, and we can move it up or down. And you can have a thumbnail. Move that also up and down. That's also facing the viewer always. And you can have a geometry. Let's make that smaller, like that. And you can annotate your 3D model with text, images, and curves, and also other things. Another interesting type of annotation is cross-section curve. Here you draw a curve on the top, and it creates a cross-section for that curve. So if we draw it like ABCD, you see this line here, and you can see the resulting cross-section on that side. We can turn off the model, and you will see the cross-section is also shown inside. Turn on the model, and we can move the cross-section inside up, so we see it from there. And we can select the cross-section and move the points. So from C to D, and you see here C to D is updated. Gets longer and changes. If you go outside, it stops like that. So let's turn off the annotations, and the last thing I want to show you is the water and oxidation levels. You can enable different zones, a groundwater zone, and then that area will be filled with that color semi-transparently, independently of the layers of the model. And a transition zone here, and oxidized zone will be just everything else. And then you can also turn on a sea surface, so the sea level you can change, of course. And you can make it also shown on the sides, and you can make it opaque. So that's a very short introduction to some interesting features we have, but there's lots of more, of course, inside here.